All right. Hi, family. How you doing? Welcome to In the Spirit with a Priestess Akaite. That's me. So I'm back at it again, and I will be cliche and say it, for you again, because if I don't say it now, I'm going to forget later. So, like, share, and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. And if you'd like to join me for some pretty deep spiritual talks and concepts, I am, as I said, maybe in the first video I did, I am a priestess. I have been doing this since 2019. I started my spiritual journey in 2008. Took me a long time to get to the point of, getting initiated. I met my mentor and traditional practitioner Okundum in 2017. He taught me African spirituality and the concepts behind it. His particular tradition is called Indum, and it is different from Ifa. So I am not an Ifa priestess. I'm just a general priestess, and I am currently studying under the system of Indum. I am looking forward to learning more. There's so much to learn, but while I'm learning, I am still able to do other things. So I'm here to teach right now. I want to teach the science of spirituality. I feel that it's been, really watered down. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation regarding spirituality. So I just wanted to put my perspective and 2 cents out there, maybe to give some clarity on a few things. Not to say everything that's out there is wrong. Of course, I do not know everything. I'm not a know it all, but there are some concepts that I do understand pretty well, and I have gained some different perspectives on it, and I like to share those perspectives with you today. So, hopefully, you can hear me okay, and you guys are ready to go down this road with me. So, today's conversation is going to be about spirituality versus metaphysics. So, many people kind of conflate the two. They like to take spirituality and define it as metaphysics, and vice versa, define metaphysics as spirituality. And a lot of the information that I see online and going around in the New Age movement really centers itself more so on metaphysics. Um, Spirituality is trending on apps like TikTok and Instagram, but majorly on TikTok. It's also trending on Facebook because there's a lot of YouTube groups that talk about concepts like hoodoo, voodoo, just, different African spiritual systems. And then there's a lot of Wiccan groups. There's a lot of groups that are into the science of magic and sorcery, things like that. But you also have groups that are into the more metaphysical principles, and that would be things like manifesting, quantum physics, even astrology. A lot of people may not think that astrology is metaphysical, but it is a more of a metaphysical concept than it is a spiritual concept. Um, so let's just talk about it a little bit more in depth. Spirituality is a concept that deals with all things pertaining to spirit. Spirit is an energy source that lives in the universe and it is spread throughout the universe. And of course, it goes to different planets, it's in the stars, it's in the night sky, the universal sky, it's in the ocean, it's in plants, and of course, it's in us. So, this spiritual force, this spiritual energy, this God energy is what creates our soul. It's what creates, allows us to have our own personal identity or footprint. Okay. And each of us gets our own personal spirit. Each plant gets its own personal spirit. And that spirit allows us to experience the world and lock the memories of these experiences into our energy codes. And we take those on to past lives. We take those on to, with us wherever we go. They're like timestamps for us that are stored in, people like to say our DNA, but I like to say in our spirit, because I don't know if your DNA, transform in it is a spirit. Our DNA is our genetic code for the human body, but it's not per se your spiritual code. So your spiritual code is, you know, your spirit being that energy force that is collecting all this information within itself. And, that's a whole different concept. So, anyway, the spirit being so vast, we know that the spirit is God, right? So the spirit comes from one big source, and a lot of people like to attribute the sun as being the source, mainly because of the Big Bang theory. They believe that we all came out of the energy of the sun and dispersed, into the rest of our galaxy. And that's how we were created in our universe. So that's why you have a lot of sun worship in Egypt and in other cultures. The sun is like God. So let's use the sun as an example because it's an easy one to use. The sun's energy is big, it's humongous, but it's able to separate itself into smaller little energy sources. And that light from the sun, or that energy from the sun, comes down into earth and inserts itself into a child, into the plants, into the water, into everything. And it manifests itself into some type of physical form. And that spirit of the sun is there for us to create these timestamps and memories and experiences here on earth, correct? Okay. So obviously everything has a spirit. Everything is going to be able to uh, be communicated with because of this energy source that lives within all things on earth, all living things on earth. So being able to develop a system that correlates with communicating with these spirits all over the world has been something that has been created time and time again. Each culture on earth, at some point on earth, since the beginning of time of when man was created on earth, has created a way to communicate with the source and communicate with all spirits on earth. That is spirituality. Okay. Being able to communicate with spirit and move spirit and, use spirit to manifest things into the physical has been an art that has been around for eons, since earth was created, really. And these things were turned into sciences or traditional practices or religions that showed you how to be able to do this on a in simple form. You know, each tradition will create religion in the form of doing certain rituals, having certain leaders or priests or priestesses that were able to communicate with specific spirits so that not everybody has to deal with that spirit. Or but they would also have practices that would allow you to work within your own spirit to help your communicate with your personal spirit. Your intuition is what we'll call it. So these systems helped people be able to have a relationship with the source. It also gave people the ability to have a relationship with just the spirit realm in general. And as these things have gotten perfected over time, we've seen so many different systems get created. And each time a group of people either go through a war or their culture or community is destroyed, spirit found a way to evolve itself, and the people were able to reteach themselves these concepts, these spiritual concepts, in another tradition. So that's why you have so many different traditions. You're never going to just have one, because time changes, environments change, and people are going to learn how to re express these things over time, you see. So, dealing with spirit is, it can be a complicated thing, but it also can be a simple thing. It just depends on what level you're dealing with spirit. There are different types of spirits to deal with. You have spirits that are hierarchical. And by hierarchical, I just mean they're considered at a top level versus there's lower level of spirit energies. A hierarchical spirit would be an example of an Orisha. A lot of people are familiar with Orisha because of the Ifa system, or another common one is angels. A lot of people are familiar with angels due to the spread of Christian religion. So I'll use angels so that everybody knows what I'm talking about, okay? So angels are hierarchical spirits. They are spirits that God used to do things on earth to help create the earth. Same with the Orishas. It was what Odo Lumer, which is another word for God, used to create the earth, create man, create this, create that. Um, these energies have such a strong and powerful energy source that's closer to the sun or closer to God, that their power is very strong. It's very powerful to work with. And because those systems are so strong, not everybody has access to work with those entities, because it can cause a lot of problems. If you have everybody just having easy access to them, we can get destruction. You can upset these deities. A lot of these deities are personified in different traditions, because it'll explain the temperament of that energy. It'll explain what will set that energy off. It will explain how the type of consequences that will occur if you mess with those energies. So to make it clear and understandable, many cultures would personify these deities and give them, human aspects, so that it was easier to explain to the community why you shouldn't do certain things with these entities. So, because of that, they created ways to have, certain people work with these deities. And they actually, in many African traditions, you are chosen by that spirit to work with it. You like, not everybody can just work with it. You have to be designated. It has to show that that spirit is okay with you working with it. So that's a very important thing to know when dealing with spirits, because if you don't know that, you can wind up getting in trouble, because again, these entities can be volatile. It's like going into a chemistry lab and just touching everything and playing with it without knowing the rules, regulations, and the consequences of working with it. So oh, gosh, there's so much information here. I'm trying not to ramble and stay on point, but there's just so much information, when you're working with spirit and even describing spirit. So I just want to give a really good picture of what it means to work with spirit and what spirit is, okay? So then when you get lower on the totem pole of this tier of spirits, eventually you get down to, you know the spirit of plants, the spirits of rocks, the spirits of, all living e- organisms on the earth. And each one of those spirits, you know, if you are a master of working with spirits, you can communicate with all of them. You can work with all of these spirits and know what to do with them. You can speak to them. You can have all kind of different experiences working with these entities. Um, of course, you also have your own personal inner spirit. So your inner spirit, your soul, is a huge important factor in the spiritual game, right? Because everything does start with you in your mind, in your head, and you want to be able to understand how your spirit relates to everything else and every other spirit in the world if you can, you know? So, what happens with spirituality is a lot of people get stuck in only wanting to work with their own spirit, or they get stuck in the idea that you're only supposed to work within your own spirit. And in most cases, that is true. As I said before, not everybody can work with every spirit in the world because you do need to have some permissions to be able to work with certain spirits because they're very dangerous, they're picky, they may not allow you to work with them. If you do try to, some serious consequences can happen. So it is true that you should maintain work within your own personal space and with your own personal spirit. But in doing so, you have to understand that there's also options for those who are trained to work with other spirits to help you. So it's not to say that just because you're sticking in your lane and doing spirit work for your own personal self, that you can't work with these other deities through someone else. And that's what the traditional healers are for. The ones who did get permission to work with these higher deities and these angels of God. Um, because when they work with these deities, they're able to do more work of God. They're able to do more powerful miracles. They're able to do, spiritual things that you couldn't do on your own, because you don't have access to that type of power. So the importance of working with a priest is so that, or a traditionalist, is so that you can experience the power and the healing of, God. God does use these hierarchical spirits to do great things. It's not always just God by himself. In Christian religion, that is what they teach. They teach that God does everything himself, and he doesn't want any other God to do these things. But for those of us in African traditions, it's taught that these hierarchical spirits do most of the work. And that's why you honor and revere them. So, working with a traditional priest is so important because it gives you an access to God power and miraculous power in a way that's safe and effective, and it can change your whole life. So that is something that I wanted to share to make sure that people understood that you don't have to just focus in one area of spirituality. And that comment's going to help me segue into the second point of this video, which is metaphysics. So, metaphysics is the science of spirituality. So, metaphysics explains the why spirituality, why we do certain things and certain rituals in spirituality. It explains why you need to be, um, why you need to dig deep, why you need to heal past traumas. It explains, why these systems work or why these systems aren't working well for you in particular. metaphysics breaks down the um, the math of spirituality. Like an example would be sacred geometry, where it explains the numbers and the patterns and the shapes and how the universe uses these numbers and shapes and patterns to create life on earth. And in these patterns, the you can explain the force and energy behind it, behind the spirit of that plant or rock or whatever it is that you're looking at the patterns in. And it will explain the vibrations of it. It explains the physical aspects of things and why they are that way, and how it relates to spirituality. That's what metaphysics does. Learning about quantum physics, that's a metaphysical concept. It's explaining the science behind vibrations and energies, and being able to transport yourself from here to there, or having telekinesis. It goes into great detail of the why and the how of the spirituality. Um, and when they break these things down, you find that you can use these concepts to do a lot of inner spiritual work, or align your brain, your heart, your mind, your soul to the energy and vibration of the universe, to the spirit of the universe. These concepts have been great at helping people heal a lot of past trauma. They've been great at helping people express themselves to the universe in a proper manner to receive their manifestations. It's helped people to understand how they can communicate with the universe to get what they want, to align themselves, to heal themselves. So, metaphysics has been a great scientific explanation that allows people to dig deep enough to do some powerful work for themselves. I don't have anything really negative to say about the concepts of metaphysics at all. It is a powerful uh, teaching. It is an important factor of knowing metaphysics to even advance yourself. um, the reason why I'm bringing these two things up is because I'm noticing that in the new age movement, people are either focusing on one or the other. They're not combining the two much anymore. Before, when religions were made and certain traditional practices were made, these concepts are meshed together. The concept of spirituality and the concept of spirituality, they're meshed together. And when they're meshed together, they make this whole big picture and this whole example of how to use. They actually create a system. Basically, when they're meshed together, it creates a system that allows you to access the universe in such a powerful method that you're able to do literally anything. Like, you can use these concepts and these rituals and this ability to communicate with spirit to make your life grand on earth. And if you neglect these things, you can make your life very complicated on earth. So, knowing these concepts are important, because if you don't understand them, you can find yourself going down a path of feeling lost. You can find yourself, not getting what you want and going through a lot of suffering until you figure it out, and that's where a lot of people are right now, because they're not getting the full picture of how to use both spirituality and metaphysics to improve their lifestyle. When they were, you know, following Judeo Christian beliefs, um, I think a lot of more people felt like they were getting more more of the whole. picture, the whole concept. Um, it's funny because I actually think you you can get the whole picture in, religions like Islam or in Christianity. You can get the whole picture. It's just that a lot of times you see they trick people into only using one side or the other, cuz like in Christianity you've given all of your power to Jesus, right? So you have to go through Jesus to get to God, but Jesus's presence isn't um he's not here on earth, and there's certain ways that you would have to petition Jesus to get to God, for it to work properly. And a lot of that information has been hidden from from Christians, and they don't know that when that they're not properly petitioning Jesus to get, the desires that they wish for or they're asking for. In traditions like hoodoo, which is an African spiritual concept that was created by the American slaves, they kind of recreated some of the African teachings they could hold on to and quietly practice them and covered it in within Christian beliefs because that's what they were taught and given at the time. And when they did that, they created a very powerful system that did allow them to be able to petition Jesus properly, to do a communicate with spirit in the correct way that they were supposed to. And the reason that is because a lot of African spiritual systems, they're very whole and centered. They use both principles of metaphysics and of spirituality, and it helps you do do what you need to do in a proper manner to help yourself. So the slaves did use these concepts a lot to be able to, navigate through slavery and protect themselves, their children, and, just get through that whole thing. So it goes to show you that when you have the whole picture, you can do a lot for yourself with the power of spirituality and the power of metaphysics. So I really wanted to share that with you today. Um, if you guys have questions, put them in the comment section. I will be glad to go over this in more detail. I'll be glad to hold a class on it. There's so much information, you know, regarding the concept of spirit and the concept of metaphysics and how to mesh them together. I'm not going to go into that right now of exactly how to do that because it is a long, it's a lot of information that you got to learn over time. But I just wanted to put it out there that it's important for us to really make sure that we're looking at both sides of the coin when we're getting into spiritual concepts and trying to create a tradition for ourselves to follow or a routine for ourselves to follow. Don't be one sided. Don't just get stuck in the inner work of metaphysics, worried about manifesting only, worrying about meditating only trying to balance your chakras, only trying to uh, build from within only and leaving out working with spirit. Because if you don't work with spirit, you may not get to the point of accomplishing your goals in an effective manner. Sometimes you need that more powerful energy to get things done. You don't always want to just be relying on your own resources to accomplish things. It would be like starting a business and then, trying to be the accountant, trying to be the CEO, trying to be the employee, just you by yourself. And that might work okay at first, but once you start getting lots of customers and you start getting lots more responsibility put on you from all these positions, you're going to get stressed out and everything's going to crumble. You need to be able to tap into other resources and other systems of help to be able to accomplish your goal effectively. And that's what, learning how to work with the spiritual side is too. Learning how to know when to go use a traditional priest because you need to use these hierarchical spirits, not to be afraid to use them because you think, you know, they're going to kill you or that it's because of all the negative information out here regarding traditionalists and African spirituality and other practices like that. Don't let that deter you from knowing the truth about working with spirit. Again, I'll repeat, it is better for you to stick with your own personal um, workings with spirit, not to use spirit to help others. There are You can work with spirits for your own personal matter. Many spirits don't have problems with that as far as you doing things in regards to your own spiritual development and working with certain orishas and certain angels on a personal level. But once you start using those deities to help others, that's where you can get into trouble because you don't have permission to use those deities on behalf of others. That is where you need to be chosen to do that type of work because there's specific things that need to be done. They have to be done in a specific way or that deity will become volatile and will mess you up. It can mess the person up and it can get really ugly. So you want to make sure that you follow the protocols in regards to working with other people and these hierarchical deities and don't be experimenting like that. There's a lot of people going around telling people to experiment and that these deities are there for you and they work for you and we're more powerful than they are and all this stuff. Don't let that stuff get you messed up. Don't let that type of misinformation have you out here looking crazy or having some deity attached to you and to generations of your family because you didn't take the time to understand the protocols of working with other deities or you didn't stay in your lane. So, thank you guys so much for listening to me. It's been about 30 minutes or so here. So I'm going to get off. I don't want to make this too long. If you want to hear more information about concepts like this, let me know in the comments. Ask questions in the comments. I will peek back and see, what you guys had to say. Thank you so much and have a great day.